This is Algebra 1, 4.4. The lessons start on page 222 and goes to 227. This is a bear in a zoo, and one of your problems later on will be how to figure out how much you should charge for tickets if you were a zoo to raise money to take care of the animals and care at the zoo. So that'll be interesting. Now we want to talk about something new called x and y intercepts, and the x-intercept is the x-coordinate of a point where a graph crosses the x-axis. The y-intercept is where the graph crosses at the y-axis, and so on the x-intercept, the y-coordinate is always 0, and on the y-intercept, the x is always, where it crosses, is always going to be at 0. So that's an important thing. We talked a little bit about it yesterday on the previous lessons. But that's the x-intercept means that the y is crossing at 0, and the y-intercept means that the x-coordinate is crossing at 0 too. On an equation of a vertical line, again we talked a little bit about this in the previous lessons, the vertical line is given by an equation of the form x equals a, where a is the x-intercept. The vertical line x equals 1 crosses the y-axis at the point, the coordinate point would be 1 and 0. The y-intercept is 1. There is no, x-intercept is 1. There is no y-intercept since the line does not intersect the y-axis. So you can see here that the x equals 1 and the vertical line is crossing right there. And we would say, again, just that this has one x-intercept and it has no y-intercept because nothing is crossing this line over here. Here on the equation of a horizontal line, the horizontal line is given by an equation, and the form is y equals b. X equals a, y equals b on this one, where b is the y-intercept. And you can see here that this is the y-axis, and the line is crossing across the y-axis. The coordinate points are 0, 3. We would say y equals 3. Nothing is crossing the x-axis, and the x would be 0. So again, vertical lines always have an x-intercept, and the equation is x equals a. Horizontal lines only have a y-intercept, and that equation is y equals a, and you see examples down here. Same thing again, because it's really important to get this concept down. Vertical lines have only an x-intercept, horizontal lines only have a y-intercept. And you can graph a line using one point. If you know it is a vertical or horizontal line, how can you tell by looking at the equation? Well, horizontal and vertical lines only have one variable in the equation, so that makes it kind of simple right there. Here's two examples of, we have an x-intercept, which we can see the line is crossing on the x-axis. Here is the y-intercept, and it is only crossing on the y-intercept. Now, this one does show that this isn't really a straight line here. But I just wanted to point out that, and so forget this part down here, but right here, this is where this is crossing. So this is just showing where the intercepts are for each of these. We have two more examples. Here we have the x-intercept, which is crossing on the x-axis, and we have the y-intercept, which is crossing on the y-axis. This would be 2, x equals 2. This would be y equals -1. So if you have the problem 2x plus 3y equals 6, and you have to find the x and y intercepts, the first thing to do is remember that if we're going to find the what x is, we turn the y to 0. And so in this, we did right here, we made, this would be, hang on a second. So this right here, the 3y, we would do 3 times 0. Oh, my stylus is off kilter. Hang on. Okay, I'll try my best. It's lost its battery power, so my stylus isn't synced up through the Wi-Fi. So we'll continue on here. The 2x putting, you may not be able to see it, but it's putting all these things on my screen. Hang on. I don't know what's going on. Okay, try this again. So here you can see that the 3y here is, we put the 0 because the y equals 0. So that 3 times 0 is 0. So we can just exclude that from the equation. And then we have 2x plus 6. And we then can eliminate the 2's here. We're going to divide both sides by 2. So we end up with x equals 6 over 2. Work that out and you end up with x equals 3, and that is marked here with the blue star. Now we need to figure out the y-intercept. And so, or the x-intercept here. I mean y, sorry. Kids are in the hallway, so they're distracting me. 2x plus 3y equals 6. We want to find the y-intercept here. Now we put the x to equals 0. And so all we're left with is the 3y equals 6. We divide both sides by 3. That leaves us with y equals 6 over 3, and that is 2, and that is shown by the red star. Here's another example of finding the y-intercept. If you had 3x plus 4y equals 12, which is, I think, the problem, that we make the x 0, because we're finding the y-intercept. So whichever one you're finding, the other variable goes to 0. So we're left with 4y equals 12, and we divide both sides by 4 down here, and we get 3. Here's another which shows doing the x-intercept and the y-intercept for the same equation, but it showed both of them. So here it worked out. We had x is going to equal 4 when we and then that's going to be there, and the y-intercept in this case is going to be negative 3. So up here we made we're trying to figure out the x-intercept, so we make the y 0. That leaves us the 3x equals 12, and then divide both sides by 3, and that equals 4. And down here we're going to make the x 0, and we're going to end up with y-intercept equals negative 3, and that is our line. So here I want to look at the 3x plus 2y equals 12. We can see that the y-intercept is 0, 6, which is right there, and we can see that the x-intercept is right here, and then we can draw our line there. On this other one, the red line, we had 0, 4, which is right here, and we had negative 1 and 0, which is right here, and that is our line right there. So here's a problem. Y equals 4x plus 40, and you're challenged to find the intercepts. Again, I apologize for my stylus. The battery's going out of it, and it's not syncing when I press down to it, so my handwriting will be bad here. It won't make connections on like my P's and 4's and things like that. Over here we have y equals 4x plus 40. 0 equals 4x plus 40. We subtract 40 from both sides, so then we have negative 40 equals 4x. When we divide by 4, and we end up with negative 10 equals x, and so the x-intercept is negative 10, and it's going to cross the line at the points of x is negative 10 and y is 0. Y equal, now we're trying to find the y-intercept, so now we make the x 0, so that'd be 4 times 0, which is 0. So we end up simply with y equals 40, and it's going to cross the line at 0 and 40. So here, if we look at this equation right here, it's what we just did, y equals 4x plus 40. And what we determined on the previous page was y equals x intercept was negative 10, and that point would be negative 10 and 0. And y, that intercept is 40, so the coordinate plots would be 0 and 40. And so you can see right here, here's 40. And the negative 10, I had to draw a line out, would be right here. And so we can see what our line would be there from that equation. I want to work through some examples here with you. We have 3x minus 6y equals 18. If we're trying to find the intercepts, we'll start with making the x 0, and then so that takes away the x, and we would end up with negative 6y equals 18. We would divide both sides by negative 6. That's going to be negative 3, and that would be the y-intercept. Down here, we work it out again, this time trying to find the x intercept, or the y, yeah, the x-intercept, sorry, and we put the y to 0, and then we're left with 3x, we divide by 3, and 18 divided by 3, that's 6, and so the x-intercept is 6 there. Here we have another one. We have equation of 4x minus 5y equals 20. We divide both sides by 4, and we get rid of the 5y here, and we end up with a x-intercept of, that would be x-intercept. That went to 0, so that's why that is nothing. Down here we have 4, again the same one, but we're going to put that at 0. Then we're left with 5y plus 20. We divide both sides by 5. We're left with, hang on a second. I wrote, that's wrong, it's 4. I don't know what I was thinking. It's negative 4 is the y-intercept here. I wrote it down wrong. We have another one here, y equals negative 2x plus 50. To find the y-intercept, we make the x go to 0 here, so we end up with y equals 50, nothing more to do for that. Down here, we get rid of the y, turn that to 0, we end up with negative 2x plus 50. We divide we add both sides, 2x to both sides, that puts the 2x on this side, and then we're left with 2x equals 50. We divide both by 2 and end up with x equals 25. We have another one here. It's 2x plus 50y equals 10. We put the x to 0. We're left with 50y equals 10. We divide both sides by 50. We're left with 10 over 50, and divide that out, and y equals 2. To get the next intercept, here we have 2x plus 0, when we changed that to 0, equals 10. Divide both sides by 2, and you got 5. Here we have x minus 6y equals 6. We change the x to 0. That leaves us with negative 6y equals 6. We divide both sides by 6. We have y equals negative 1. We have x minus 0 equals 6, and then x equals 6, and I have a poor line here, but you can see how I graphed that out. Here we have 2x minus 4y equals 96. We change the x to 0. We're left with negative 4y equals 96. Divide both sides by 4, and y equals 24. Here we do the same equation, except we take the y to 0. We end up with 12x equals 96. Divide both sides by 12, and we have x equals 8, and we can draw a line. Hopefully you'll use a ruler, and it will be better than what I did. There is graph paper to do this when you get ready to do your assignment.
Oh, right, yeah. So the doctors asked me if I wanted to keep my legs. The chance of me being able to walk again was pretty low, according to them. It was early on, so they hadn't seen many cases like mine. So the question was, do you want to keep them? And I told them, I said, hey, I came in with 2. I'd like to leave with 2. So it made it harder in recovery. It did. I remember the first time that I got out of the wheelchair, on parallel bars, and
Your assignment for Algebra 1, Lesson see, this is, oh, trying to write, I don't have it, if I can write it, 4.4, I don't know why it's cutting out. Okay, it's on page 225 to 227. Your problems that you need to do are 27 through 23, 29, 30, 36 through 38, 42 through 44, 48 through 51, 55, 56, 58 through 90 evens. That's the 58 through, it's 58 through 80, sorry. 58 through 80 evens. And this will all be due today on top of what if you were finishing up yesterday's lesson. So just remember, this is due today or by the beginning of class tomorrow morning.